This is the Creatively Geeky Show, the support group for your creative process.
Hello and welcome to the Creatively Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. I'm joined tonight by Ray and Chris, our usual group here. And we have a special guest tonight. We talked about it a little bit on the last episode. We said we were going to start reaching out to some other creative people we know to talk about what it is they do. And our first guest is published author and my sister-in-law, Amber Palmer. How are you doing?
I am great. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So we wanted to set this up kind of as an interview type episode. So we're gonna kind of run through some questions that we had set up. But you know, if something else comes up, we'll wander off into the conversation. So we don't want to monopolize your entire evening. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of reach out to this show. We started this show because all of us are creative in different ways. I tend to make props. Ray paints, does guitar, does pretty much everything, builds stuff. Chris has knit and has also written, and so we all have different hobbies that are all creative, and we wanted a way to kind of talk about it and share what it is we're doing and everything else, and that's why we thought you would be a great fit for this because, like I said, girl's got some published books. So I guess let's start with that. When did you start writing?
So I always liked writing. I mean, growing up and everything, but a lot of like during school and stuff, we didn't do like a lot of creative writing. And so it was one of those things where I got a lot of like teachers were like, this is great, but like this isn't what we're looking for because like this is supposed to be an academic paper. And I was like, oh man, I must suck at writing. And so I didn't do it for like the longest time. And I was actually it was COVID era and I was taking a script writing class or a screenwriting class. And like a lot of the things that we were doing, like I loved it. It was fun. But when you're writing, screenplays, like you have to leave a lot up to imagination. And so like I was putting in like these like paragraphs of things and my teacher was like, I mean, this is great, but like this is not like you need to tone this way down. Like you don't need to like set the scene this well. And so like we were talking and he was like, have you ever considered like writing books? And I was like, no, that's silly. Absolutely not. And so it was just like one of those things, like I just kind of planted the seed and then I got back into reading. And I was just like, you know what? Like maybe I can do this. Like let's give it a try. And so like I went down like the rabbit hole of like indie authors and like this whole like resurgence of self-publishing. And I was like, I don't have to query. I don't have to, go through these years and, stack of rejections and everything like that. Like I can just kind of figure it out and send it. And so that's what I did.
Nice. So was your first book self-published?
Yeah. Everything so far has been self-published. So
cool.
I've been completely on my own.
Nice.
Good on you.
That's not daunting at all.
Yeah, exactly. I really thought that it was, I don't know why when I got into it, it was like, oh man, like it's a book. Like what all do you need to do? Right. And then it's like the further you get, you're like, oh man, this is a lot harder than I made it out to be.
Yeah. Which probably worked in your favor, or else you might not have done it if you didn't know how.
Yeah, no, I feel like it would have definitely pumped the brakes a little bit had I understood the full scope of things.
So with that then, what advice would you give somebody that would be looking at self-published for the first time? What would you tell yourself at the beginning? I guess would be what?
Expect not to make money. And, like, that was just something, I was like, "Okay, like, you do all these things, right? And then you just, like, sell your book." And, like, but there's so much more that goes into that, and I mean, just like any other, because it truly is like a self-published author, you truly are, your own boss. You are running your own company. So, I mean, I do my own marketing, I do my own, obviously, like, the actual writing portion, you have to outsource who's going to do your cover, are you going to get character art, what kind of swag are you going to include, are you going to do stickers, are you going to do bookmarks, are you going to do, like, there's just this whole, like, laundry list of things,
Yeah.
and it's just you. It's a one woman band here. And so I think, eh, I had this, like, expectation of, like, oh, you just write the book and then you publish it and it sells, and, like, it's not, we're going to be spending a lot of money to make your book sell. And so that's been something, like, I've had to kind of step back and realize, hey, it's okay that I'm not in the green yet.
Mhm.
I'm okay with taking a loss as long as I know that I'm growing.
Mhm.
And also having the means to do that as well. So, like, that's super important too.
Yeah.
So what drew you to writing? What made you start? You said you started off with a screenwriting class.
Mhm.
What made you decide you were going to do that?
So I always wanted to do film.
Mhm.
I wanted to, originally it was going to be more like cinematography, because I started in regular photography and I was a movie fanatic forever. I've loved movies since I was a little kid. So I always wanted to do something in film, and one of the prereqs for the film program I was in was I had to take 2 semesters of screenwriting, because it really, they did a really good job of kind of giving you a view of multiple different departments so that you could have an idea of, the work that goes into, those departments, and also just kind of giving you just like a more like multi-rounded education on the subject so that you understood like how important that process was. So I had to take two semesters of it, and I took it, and like I a lot of it was on my professor because I probably would have stayed the course, but like I just had a really great professor, who was very encouraging. And so, yeah, I only ended up, I dropped out after that semester to kind of pursue more the writing side. So, um, yeah, that's kind of it was just kind of by happenstance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in here real quick?
Look at my notes.
I remember asking one of the other authors this question. I think it was Sean that actually asked it, so I'll ask you as well.
Mhm.
Uh, when you're writing, do you consider your writing for audiobooks, and does that alter how you write your
Oh,
story?
yeah.
Yeah, so on some of them I do. I am personally a very big audio person. I used to be able, like, I could sit down with my Kindle or a physical book, and I mean, I could do that for hours and hours and hours on end. Like, I could waste away an entire weekend. But when I started writing, I started feeling like guilty because I was like, there are so many different things that I should be doing right now. Like,
Mhm.
I shouldn't be sitting here like reading a book. I should be writing my own. Like, I've got all this stuff, and so I didn't really care for audio. I tried some. I didn't like the narrators, and so I realized a lot of it was just A, the speed that I was listening to it, and two, just I don't vibe with some narrators.
Mhm.
And so I got really into it. Now that's pretty much for the most part, unless I'm reading for work or something. I almost strictly do audio. And so as I've gotten more into this like community, there are like I've met narrators, and so like one of my books, like The Night Runs Red, I wrote with a very specific narrator in mind. And she is my friend, and I think that it is much more when I'm writing for that kind of thing, I very much like picture it in her tone with her like like, oh, how would she say this? Like, and things like that. So I do think that yes, it does. And sometimes it's unintentional. Um and then sometimes like I catch myself being very intentional with the things that I say because I have a specific narrator or style in mind. So
That's fair.
That's cool. Yeah, because who was it? Scott or
Dennis
Dennis said that. Yeah.
that Sean had asked that too. So
Mhm. It's interesting that it's changing sort of the
mhm,
landscape of writing. Is that now you're thinking about who's going to read it out loud?
mhm,
Well, and the one thing that Dennis had said specifically was that said is an invisible word, and it's actually like you take it out now because hearing he said, she said so
mhm.
in an audiobook, cut it out.
Yeah.
Don't
Yep.
need that, and be more um, be more creative in the way of how you introduce which character's talking. Like it was
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just like mimicking, like natural flow of like conversation. And so like a lot of the times, like especially like primarily for dialogue, not so much like, thoughts and descriptions and everything. But like there are times like I will literally have like conversations out loud like as my characters because I'm like trying to figure out like if I'm stuck on how to say something or how I'm like how would I say that? Like I know what I want to say, but like when you see it written down, it doesn't always, you're like, that looks weird. And
Mhm.
so, like, I'll find myself like having conversations with myself to like try and like figure it out loud. Or I will literally, I'll ask some of my friends and I'm like, hey, here's the scene. This is what I need. Like,
Mhm.
let's, and I have literally role played with friends to try and figure it out. So,
That's awesome. That sounds fun, actually.
yeah. I mean,
Fantastic.
perks of having, like, my editor is, like, one of my best friends, so, like, I'm like, "Listen, I'm just trying to make your job easier at the end of the day." So, like
Really for you.
yeah, I was like, "Bear with me for, like, 5 minutes while we knock this out, and then you won't have to worry about it later. It's good."
Works.
Fantastic. Tell you what, before we hit some of the questions, can we just run through some of your books real quick?
Absolutely.
Because number one, you were talking about how about doing the book cover and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but also just kind of give us a quick rundown of some of them. So we will start with the beginning.
Yeah.
So the first one was of Darkness and Fire.
It was.
So how did you come up? Okay, well, first off, where did you come up with the cover art?
So this is actually my second cover. So I
Okay.
I had this redesigned. I designed my first cover myself, um, which was fine, but it was not great by any means. But I was trying to cut costs as much as I could. So I actually, when I started writing, I had a friend who she was doing my map for me because there's a big fantasy map at the beginning of the book, and so she actually did covers and so we became friends and I was like, you know what? I was like, I want to redesign my covers. So she actually did those. Um but I don't know. I wish I could tell you. Like I don't have like I literally was just like messing around on like Photoshop and like just playing around with things and I was like, I was like this looks cool. And so like I kind of like I came up with it cuz like my one of my characters, my main male character in the book, he has a familiar who's a raven and so I was like I want that to be like represented. And then the female main character, Eva, she like has fire powers. So I was like,
That's
combined.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and then blue, I just liked blue, I'll be honest. I had to pick a color, and so that was the color I chose for that. But yeah, it just kind of I played around with things until I found something I liked and I just rolled with it.
That's awesome.
So my next question is so the first book was of Darkness and Fire. The
Mhm.
second book
Mhm.
of Truth and Traitors. Had you already had in mind you were going to do a series, or was this just like the next logical step that, oh, I'm going to keep taking these characters and go on?
No, I did know that I was gonna have a series. I originally thought it was only gonna be 2 books, and then as I kind of started writing, and I am very much a pantser and not a plotter, and so sometimes things shift from what I originally planned it on. And so, as I was writing and as the story was evolving, I can't wrap this up in 2 books. So I just settled on a trilogy. And so yeah, I always knew there was going to be at least 2, but the third one was a surprise.
Interesting. That's very cool. Speaking of the third one, that's of Ashes and Crowns.
Mhm.
So you said you kind of had an idea for the series, and this is how
Mhm.
you ended up wrapping it up. It's funny, going back to Dennis E. Taylor, who Chris and Ray were referencing when we were talking to him. He was talking about his next book hadn't come out at that point. And it was originally supposed to be 2 books, and
Mhm.
Audible was kind of like, "Hey, can you maybe squish them into 2?"
Mhm.
So it was kind of an opposite thing, because I think most people would say they have to. No, this is longer than I thought it was going to be extended
Mhm.
out. So that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting that you did it that way. So, and did you do is this also artwork that you came up with, or?
So general concept, but this was actually the first one that was designed by the designer that did the others.
Okay.
So she was the one again that worked on the map, and she ended up doing all of my branding, logo, and things like that. So I've used her for almost everything that I've done. But yes, so she made this was the first one that she made for me, and then we updated the other 2 to match this.
Ooh,
The vibes.
I
Nice.
like
Yeah.
that. I like that.
Mhm.
Of course, when you're getting into a series and you're like, okay, how did this pass? How did
Yeah.
this pass? Who okayed this? Because it's different from the other ones, and now I cannot unsee it. That
Yeah.
bugged me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we
thank
ended up
you.
yeah, no, so we ended up updating, and so we kind of did, and book 1 got kind of like a secondary edit because it was my debut, and so we did kind of like a re-release situation and like made a whole thing of it. But yeah, that was the first thing after I finished, and I was like, all right, I was like, we did too good of a job, so now we have to update the others to match because like
Yeah.
right now it's just not great. You can tell that it is not the same.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like Chris. Like you look at a book series and you're just like for
Mhm.
whatever reason they keep going back and redoing Stephen King's books,
Oh,
and
I
they'll come up
know.
with a different style. And I'm like, fine, it's fine if you're going to do all of them,
Mhm.
but then you start getting like 4 or 5. You can go through your Audible and find 4 or 5 books that's the one style that's like a solid color. It's like a brief outline of something else, and then there's something in the background. And it's just kind of the title, and that's fine. But then it gets very jarring when it goes next to one that they haven't done that with, and it's like,
Mhm.
I'm the same way with y'all. It kind of drives me insane.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next ones, though, so and if this is okay for me to bring up,
Mhm.
you posted on your Facebook, you were actually thinking about taking. You said it's crossed your mind to take these down. Can I ask
Yeah,
why?
yeah. Um, so I have grown a lot as a
Mm.
writer from when I wrote those books, and so I love them very dearly. I have talked with my editor, and we've tossed around the idea of taking them down to rewrite them and put them back up.
Mhm.
Um, but I that series, while I love it very much, it came with a lot of learning curves, and so like I almost have like a little bit of like PTSD from
Mm.
those. And so it's the thought of like going back is not like appealing.
Mhm.
Um and while I would love, because book 2 of Truth and Traitors is probably it's one of my favorite books I've written. I had so much fun writing that. I love the story, the drama, like I love so much about it. But it's not a great seller as it like the trilogy in general is just not it's not a hit. And so it's been one of those things where I'm like I've toyed around with the idea. Um but also I don't want to take them down until I know that I could commit to like rewriting, at least right now.
Mhm.
And like I've talked to like other, other authors who almost all of them are like, oh yeah, like I unpublished my first like couple of books because like
Really? That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, because a lot of them, especially like in the indie community, like you are learning things on your own. So
Mhm.
it comes with a lot of ups and downs. And you learn more about like, writing to market and, things that'll go over well and things that won't or and so I think I mean it's just like on the job experience.
Mhm.
And so I know that like if that story had come to me now and I wrote it now, it would be totally different.
Mhm.
In a great way. But yeah, it's something that crosses my mind from time to time, which makes me sad, but also like I want people, if someone picks it up, I want them to want to continue on with my books, and not be like,
I need to know. Don't take them down yet.
I know, no, you're good, you're good, you're good.
Just finish the first
Yeah, no, you're good, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. Yeah.
one.
No, but it has been something that's like crossed my mind from time to time. And so far the consensus has been to not take it down. So I'm still holding on for right
Right.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that.
So, sorry, you mind if I jump in there, Eugene? It looks like
No,
you
go
have-
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, before we move on to your other books that you were talking about, you
Mhm,
touched on the part where your writing process, where you've yeah, you're kind of letting it flow, and you had a plan, but then you had to shift
mhm,
it. Do you feel like, or have you ever had it feel like your characters were talking to you and like where
mhm,
they're altering your story on you, and they're
mhm.
like, "Why would you do that to me? I gotta."
Yep. Oh, all the time, literally all the time. I will be towards the end. I am one of those people that I can't just like write a first draft. Like I edit while I write. And
Mhm.
so there'll be a lot of times where I'm going to be 75% done with a book and then my character's going to throw me a curveball and I'm like
Rude, rude.
I'm like, we've been laying the foundation for this one very specific thing, and then you go along and you say, "No, I don't want to do that. That's not something I would do." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I can't argue with you. You would know, but like, also
Yeah. It's funny you say that
rude."
because I have listened to other authors talk, and a lot of them, there's so many different ways people write stuff. I
Mhm,
mean, create everything. And there are some people that are just like, no, it just kind of came to me and I put it out there. But what you described is very much what, if you've never read, whatever, Stephen King's book on writing, that's
mhm,
literally how he describes it. He's like, listen, I'm doing the book that they're telling me to do. If you
mhm.
don't like it, blame the characters.
Yeah.
And he says it, I mean, even going back to one of his original books, which is one of my favorites, Salem's Lot is still one of my favorite books and he flat out says, even in the intro of that book, that some of the characters, the main character wanted to be a big character. He wanted to be a
Mhm,
hero, and he initially
mhm,
did not see it going that way. So I
mhm.
I totally get that. Everything you're saying, I'm just like, yeah, you're not the only one. You're not the only one that
No,
said that.
no, and I found when I try to force it, like when I'm like, "No, no, no, this is we just did this. No, you are going to do this." They're like, "No, mm-mm, I'm not. I
Yeah.
promise you I'm not."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, I don't know what to do now." So
Fair enough.
I have to. Yeah, I feel like I have to because at the same time like I'm like this isn't I mean, it's my story, but it's not my story. Like these turn into like very real people.
Mhm.
It's like you get attached to them like movie character. I mean, like these are very real entities. And so I'm like, well, like I don't know. Like this is your life. Like I would assume that you would know. Like I
Yeah.
guess take me on this journey because we're both learning stuff today. I don't know.
Nice.
Okay, so that fits right into my next question, which is: have you ever felt guilt for something you've done to a character?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've I'm very well known for telling people that I like tear trophies. So much so that actually my friend made me this necklace that says reader tears, and she sent it to me because I have made her cry so many times. Um like there is this one of my favorite pictures ever, and she, right before the third book in my trilogy released, we were at an event together, and she wanted me to tell her, obviously everyone can't make it out alive, like, right, like in these big fantasy, it's just not realistic. And so everyone knew that there was going to be a death. And so she made me tell her who it was, and I was like, you don't make me do this.
Yeah.
And when I told her, she literally fell to the floor crying. And one of our other friends took pictures of us while we did this. So to this day, it's still one of my favorite pictures. But I've also told readers, I'm like, if you send me screenshots of you crying, I do keep them. They're in an album in my phone.
That's awesome.
So
Remember
just send that, send them with caution because I keep them.
That's hilarious. Oh, I was just going to circle back real quick and just say that the whole thing about going back and deleting or removing your original work,
Mhm.
I think that's pretty much across the board. Doesn't matter what it is. I know people
Yeah.
who have done like my buddy Travis, who's going to be is going to be the next guy we interview here in a couple of months. He's told me, he's like, yeah, he said I wrestle almost every other day with, I don't really want to leave that up because it's
Mhm.
horrible. It was my first work. It looks like garbage.
Mhm.
Yeah, Ray's getting the pat there of, I'm sure he's been like, oh, this wasn't very good. This is some of my early work.
Mhm.
It's not, maybe I should get rid of it. And
Mhm.
I'm more so of the
that.
ilk of just leave it up there because it's always a good way to go back and look at how much you've grown.
Yeah.
Because believe me, the first videos that we've done, yeah, like it's always a learning process. So
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's been the general consensus so far. So I've agreed to leave them up until I absolutely am like, no, like these
yeah.
gotta go.
mhm, fair enough. Do you have a goal with your writing? Did you ever have a goal with your writing, or was it just like I just need to get this out?
Um, I don't think I really had a goal when I started. I think it was very much like this is a really cool thing and I want to explore that and see where it goes. Um and so that's kind of just how it started, and then like it's like the more I get into the community, like, and the more like I write, and I'm like, okay, no, like I want this to be my full-time career. Like I very much want to be able to do this for a living.
Mhm.
Um and so I think that has now, not I think, that has now become my goal. Um and so I've got a small goal by June 2026 to be sustainably full time. I don't know if that's going to happen, but like that's what we're working towards. So
Cool.
That's awesome.
John's still waiting for the day I can retire him, and I told him, I said, listen, I said, if you just keep supporting me, I was like, you know what, I got you, but like you're gonna have to be the breadwinner for a little bit longer. I'm
For a little bit
sorry.
longer, yeah.
I knew I would.
Oh, let's get and
Mhm.
circle back to your next books. So that
Yeah.
the first three you put out were a trilogy,
Mhm.
and then you went on to your next book,
Mhm.
The Night Runs Red. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Yes. So The Night Runs Red was very much a like passion project for me. I wanted to do vampires, and I said, you know what? Let's do it. So it's very much, it's got more of the romance aspect, like the traditional like romance,
Mhm.
plot, I guess. I mean, there's external, and because it is still paranormal, and so there's other stuff on that. But this one is very much, it's got like arranged marriage and, forced proximity. And so it does cater to those more. And this is where, I'm learning slightly more about like writing to market and what's going to sell. And, but this one was just so much fun to me. And I actually took I had taken a class. It was an actual class on vampires, the history of vampires, which was probably like, besides like that screenwriting class, like that is probably my top college class I've ever taken in my entire life.
Nice.
So it went back to like the basics and the folklore and like where it originated and, like how it got to be where it is today. And so I had so much fun writing that book. But yeah, so I knew very early on that it was going to be a duology. And so I wrote that one differently because the first book is strictly from the female main character's point of view. And the second book, book 2, is strictly from the male point of view. So I had a very distinctive style, like writing style in mind when I was doing it, because I knew that there was going to be like a lot of secrets and, like building those layers. And so I wanted, whenever it switched point of views, I wanted it to make sense through the book. Like, hey, you're not going to get everything. You're not going to get the full side of the story until you read, his book 2, the continuation and his point of view.
So you had already said that this was already going to be a duology in your mind when you started writing it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we'll save the last one for a little bit later because there's kind of an announcement with that one. So we're gonna hold off on the next one. So, can you describe your writing process? Like when you write, where you write, how you write? Like, is it you have to be in the zone, you have to be in a certain spot in the house, or are you just like, nope, I can write whenever?
So I don't tell my boss I write a lot at work. Especially like on downtime and stuff. And then like I will take my laptop, to work, and I'll like work through my lunch. Like, I'll write during my lunch break and everything. Other than that though, I have a desk that is right now very messy and chaotic, but I don't like writing at a desk traditionally because I'm too wiggly and I keep wanting to move, and I don't have the space to move and get comfortable. So when I'm at home, I do a lot of writing either on my couch or like I'll do it in bed or wherever. I save my desk space for like actual like work. Like if I need to sit down and do like admin stuff, or I need to schedule posts or whatever, then I will sit down on my desk to do that, because it like switches on that little like, okay, I'm taking off my writing hat and I'm putting on like, whatever other hat that day. Yeah. So I can kind of change it up, but that helps me kind of differentiate between like what I'm going to do. But yeah, no, I can't write at a desk. I get too bored.
Fair enough. Another question I had written down that I hadn't originally put out there, so I want to kind of throw out there. How necessary is it for you to be? How necessary is social media in your self promoting? Is it like
100%.
Is it the thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Much to my dismay, it is. It is.
Okay.
I spend so much time on social media that it is literally like a third full-time job. Like it is constant. And it's multiple social medias. It's Instagram, it's Threads, it's TikTok, it's Facebook, it's all of them. So you have to go throughout all of it, and you have to have genuine engagement, and you can't just like schedule the posts and then like never pop on. Like you very much have to be involved and share and comment, and it is a lot. That's probably like the number one thing like I am not a huge fan of. And I know that I have friends and like a lot of other bigger authors they will hire like PAs to do that for them, so where, you know, maybe they only get on and like check messages and stuff, but like the PAs will, you know, do the posts and the comments and likes and, you know, the other overall like engagement and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people will do that, especially if they can afford it. Because I mean, the amount of time that I spend on social media just like doing all of the things is, I mean, it's time I could be doing other things, but like I can't not do it, unfortunately.
Right.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, most of us here on the show have kind of started pulling back away from social
Mhm.
media. At least, it's funny is because I've actually started doing more with the epically geeky stuff. The problem is I'm in charge. I have my personal social media. I have
Mhm.
I run the social media stuff, what little bit we do for the site and the shows, and then I also do the stuff for the Austin Ghostbusters. So I'm
Mhm.
constantly switching between the three, and I've definitely had the situation where I've posted on one, been like, nope, that goes on
Oh
the other
yeah.
one, delete. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't do personal social media anymore. Everything is
Mhm.
strictly like I have what used to be my personal Facebook, but I basically went through and I thinned out everyone that wasn't like you guys.
Yeah,
Like, but you know, like those friends that I had, you know, in third grade that we were, you know, obligatory, like those are
yeah,
gone. So I pretty much just use those for business. So I basically did away with all personal and it's just strictly business now, which
Mhm.
is fine because a lot of that, like I have to be approachable and like I can use that in a way
Mhm.
as my personal social media. Um, but yeah, I did away with it because I was like, I can't do all of this.
It's a
Mhm.
lot. It's so
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so much. I feel like a lot of people um don't understand like how taxing and like how much like social media like how it can wear on you.
Mhm.
But also it's a necessary evil because I mean, I've noticed like if I take like a week away, my engagement I come back and like it's in the toilet. Like you
Mhm.
have to keep up that momentum. Like you can't. I mean, you can probably I take like a day off sometimes, but for the most part, if I am not continuously doing something, then it'll tank
Yeah,
and
it
it
doesn't
sucks.
take long.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, which kind of sucks because when I started um, dabbling in the writing years and years ago,
Mhm.
it was social media wasn't what it is today.
No.
So it was blogging. So
Mhm.
you had to write, and you had
Yes.
to
Right.
blog at the same
Yeah.
time, and then you had to interact with other blogs, and you had to interact with your
Mhm.
commenters, and then it was just like, when do I write? Because so
Yep.
far I'm just writing the blog posts about the writing, and then I'm writing at the commenters, but then I have to engage with the other writers
Mhm.
that I am in a writing group with. So it was just like it was a lot. And somebody was telling
Mhm.
me that they spent how many hours a week they spend just
Oh,
doing
yeah.
writing, and I'm like, oh,
That's full time job.
that sounds
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, it is. It really is. John's always like, "You're always on your phone." I'm like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to be." It's literally I'm like, "Do you want me to retire you? Like, wasn't that what you were just saying? So, like, let me be on
Yeah.
my phone. Like, I'm doing the things."
Yeah, and what I found out what happening was it would zap all my creative energy. I
Mhm.
didn't have anything left over.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and what inevitably would happen is I would get writer's block, and
Mhm.
you're just staring, and you're like, "Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me," and there's
Mhm.
nothing, and there's
Yeah.
nothing. So yeah, it's frustrating when that happens, especially when you're like in a really sweet flow, and
Mhm.
like it's meant well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't take much.
No. So what do you do when that happens? Because I just had to take time away.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I do that. I did a lot of that last year. Like I only published one book last year. Um
Only one book.
so
I only published one book last
yeah,
year.
I know. I know. Well, it's always been my goal to publish two a year.
Oh, okay.
Um and so but I only did the one, but I also my newest one that's releasing very soon. I wrote that very quickly. For the most part that was entirely written in the last month and a half, 2
Oh,
months of 2024. Um, so but for the most part, I took took a lot of 2024 off, and I was just doing like my events and stuff. I mean, I have multiple manuscripts that are just kind of hanging out because I was in a good flow, and then I hit a wall, and I haven't been able to go back.
Mhm.
So I mean, a lot of those times I do usually, like, if I can afford to take some time away, I will. Um other than that, like, I try to do things that, like, bring me joy and, like, do tend to spark creativity. So, like, I am a huge music person. So I will, I have book playlists for, like, every book that I ever do. So sometimes it's just like I'll just, like, go and, like, I will just put earphones in and I will just, like, listen to those songs, or I'll do, like, a radio or something just to kind of get that going. I've also, like, read books that have brought me joy. I'm like, what are those books that, like, when I got back into reading, what is it about those books that I first read that, like, made me think that, like, hey, this is actually something I could do. So sometimes I'll reread books. Sometimes I'll watch TV shows or movie, just kind of like switching mediums sometimes, like, will help. Um, so it really just kind of depends. Sometimes I'll even, like, I literally the other day I sent my friend a 10-minute long voice memo. And I was like, this is what I'm dealing with right now. And sometimes just talking about it out loud I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like, I just solved my own problem. And if I had just done that, a week ago,
Fine.
yeah,
Been in good
exactly.
shape. Yeah.
But I didn't. I spiraled, and now here we are. But I inadvertently I got there. I got where I wanted to go. But yeah, it just kind of depends on the block. Because sometimes things will work and sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
So on the opposite side of that, then, so instead of
Mhm.
just pages, inspiration. What's
Mhm.
the strangest spark of inspiration where were like, and can you tell us that moment of, like, you're just doing whatever you're doing day to day life, and all of a sudden it's like that moment where it's like, oh, I gotta write about that.
Sometimes it's just like I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was on book 2 of the duology, The Day Burns Bright. And one of my friends, like, said this, like, really stupid comment. Like, and I don't even I genuinely I don't remember what it was, but it, like, I was like, "Oh." I was like, I need to write this down. Like, my notes in my phone is full of just, like, one-lined anecdotes that I, like, it sparked something at the time, and then sometimes by the time it was like, "That was great," but I lost it.
Yeah. Yeah. Forget why
Yeah.
that
Like,
was.
if I can't do something with it right then, like, half the time, the chances are
Yeah.
it's gonna be gone.
Yeah. It's like you read about, you're like, oh, that one. I don't know what
I don't
that
remember
meant.
I'm
that.
I have so many notes in my phone where I'm like, I don't even remember what this was. And some of them, they're just, like, random words. Like,
Yeah.
I had a friend that posted one of hers, and it was like blood, moon, crescent, like, all of these just, like, random, like, words that, like, went together, but also, like,
Mhm.
didn't go together. And I was just like, she was like, I don't even know what this is. And she was like, I wrote this at 3 a.m. I have no idea what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that'll do it. It was 3 a.m. That's why.
Yeah.
Came out of a dream and it made sense at the time.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I mean,
Yeah.
Adam Savage just talked about that not just a couple of weeks ago, talking about he always has a paper and a pen beside the bed. He's like,
Mhm.
because I know I've woken up, like, I'm gonna remember that. And it's
See.
like, who knows? It may have been absolute garbage, but then you never know that maybe that would have been the next great thing that he wasn't thinking about. And then there's always that famous episode of Seinfeld where he wakes up in the middle of the night and writes something down. He's like, this is the greatest joke ever, and goes back to bed and wakes up the next morning. He's just like, what did I write? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Yeah.
Like, I'll have, like, one line, like, I'm looking, like, I have, like, one lines, like I'll just have, like, random, like, dialogue, like,
Mhm.
just, like, one line of random dialogue. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. I wrote on one that I haven't written, but I literally I transferred it over to Google Docs just to see how long it was. It was 7 pages.
Oh, there you go.
That's not bad.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know what happened here because I didn't remember doing most of it.
Mhm.
I was literally going to input something else in my notes and I saw this and I was like, why is this so long?
Mhm.
I was like, I
Something
don't
else I
know.
wanted to bring up along with along with social media. So I only get to see Amber maybe once or twice a year. Usually it's around the holidays. Just because of schedules and everything else. But one of the things that we like to talk about is conventions. Whereas I do conventions as the Austin Ghostbusters, and they're pop culture conventions or whatever. You do a lot of book conventions.
I do.
And so, do you find that helpful in not only just in selling the books and networking? Like, tell us about that.
Oh gosh, yeah. I as exhausting as they are, I love conventions. They're so much fun. Because most of my friends are online, and so this is like the almost one guaranteed time where we can like all get together at least like once a year.
Mhm.
And so that's just fun. I just get to be around of like a bunch of people that I like that we all like also like work together because we're in the same like
Right.
sphere. Um but yeah, no, it is huge for getting your name out there and marketing. And I mean, because especially like when it comes to covers, like everyone says don't judge a book by its cover, but everyone does,
Yeah.
right? Like they're gonna be books that you're just gonna be drawn to because of what the cover looks like.
Mhm.
And so there are a lot of times like you go out to the conventions and you've got your books displayed and everything, and someone will literally stop and be like, that is the most gorgeous book I've ever seen. Tell me about it. I would never have met them if it wasn't for that.
Mhm.
And so then I ran into this in DC where I had this girl came by. She was like, "Oh yeah," she's like, "I'm just like waiting for my friends or whatever." She ended up buying book 1 in my duology, and she went back and like did a lap and came back with her friends, and her friends were like, "Oh yeah, no, we saw that book. Like that book's gorgeous." Like they
That's
didn't
awesome.
even care. They didn't care what it looked like
Yeah.
or what it was about. They were just like, that is a pretty book. I want it.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that. And also you just get to meet people and not just readers, but like also people in the industry, whether it's other authors or designers or artists or whatever it is. You get to network, and some of the coolest people that I've ever met, I've met at conventions, and we've been able to form friendships and kind of just like our own little like bubble. And so that's something like it's huge. It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
One of our favorite expos to go to is Fan Expo down in Toronto.
Hmm.
As fans, we don't go any other. And there are some artists down there that if we get the opportunity to chat with them, we have to, because we've had
Hmm.
at our very first convention we went to, and they were there, and we got a couple of pieces from their artwork. And
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I'm
yeah.
like, where is this going?
So that's it's so interesting that you can build those connections really
Yeah,
quickly.
because we had a couple of times like in sequential years,
Yeah.
and we like sought her out.
Yeah.
And we have like I don't know how many prints. We haven't seen her in like a decade because
No,
we haven't
it's been
gone
a while.
back. But
Yeah.
like it's so cool that you have that, you build that little that
Hmm.
rapport
Yeah.
with somebody. It's really cool.
And then as an artist, it's really interesting to hear somebody say, "Oh, this is in this room," and like I've done that to it, like because there's a painting of mine that I've done that's with a friend of ours that she has it up in her wall. And she's like, "I see it every day," and it's so I'm like, so that's just it's kind of cool that's out there, right? So
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, like I always get super excited, like if I'm like looking at people's like bookshelves or something, because I always try to find like my book. And so like every now and then I'll find one and I'm like, the guy did that. That's cool.
That's awesome.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. On the flip side, I wanted to ask, so how do you handle criticism?
Not well.
I don't think anyone does really, right?
No. No, I yeah. So I'm not allowed. So Goodreads, right? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know if you guys are familiar with Goodreads,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
it's a subsidiary of Amazon, and so that's like a huge major like review site for books. And so it is defined as the bad place amongst my friends in our circle, and
Mhm.
I am banned from going to the bad place. Which is fine because I think like as an author, I think there's been a huge discourse on authors coming into reader spaces, because Goodreads is by definition that is a reader space. That is
Mhm.
Mhm.
that is not for me.
Yeah.
It's not for me. And so, there's been a huge discourse, and authors coming into reader spaces, and like getting upset by reviews for X, Y, or Z reason. And don't get me wrong, I mean, and I everyone has seen them. There are some strange reviews out there,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
you look at them and you're like, seriously, like,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it's also, I mean, if that's how you feel about something I wrote, then that's how you feel.
Mhm.
I can't change that. The book is out, and I'm not going to change it, obviously. There's nothing I can do. So if that's how you feel about it, then that's on you. Um and well, and also like on the flip side, then you have like a lot of readers coming into author spaces, right? Like commenting on social media posts, like, oh my god, I hated this book is horrible, why did you do it like this? And it's like, okay, like, there needs to be like a mutual respect. Like, if you don't want us coming into your spaces, screenshotting your review and being like, this is the dumbest review I've ever read, like, why would you say that? Then don't come into like our space and,
Yeah.
confront us, because chances are like we're going to fire back.
Yeah.
I have been very fortunate, knock on wood, that I have not really had to deal with that.
Mhm.
I just don't go to the bad place, and I'm not allowed. Like
Yeah.
Good.
I like it's
Yeah.
blocked on my phone. If I need to get on there for like any reason, then either I have John do it. I'm supervised at all times. I am just not I'm just not allowed. I'm like a toddler. Like it is not like I've had to go on there. And so I called my friend and I was like, I have to go on the bad place because I have to get this one thing. I have to do this one thing on my profile. So I need you to hold me accountable. And so we literally FaceTimed while I got on there,
Mhm.
and did what I needed to do. And then she was like, okay, now you're done. And I was like, okay,
Are you sure?
So
yeah,
tempting. Like,
it is. It's so tempting. It's so tempting. But yeah, I have if I usually when ever like pre-release, because we send out advanced reader copies, or ARCs for short. And so there's a lot of times, because on ARCs they're not getting the final polished version. And so, and there's a small window of which, if someone finds a true error, we can go in and,
yeah.
fix it, right? And so I I have friends, and actually I hired someone to do my arcs this time round so that I didn't have to deal with it. But she goes in and she's been checking my reviews and making sure that there's not any genuine concerns.
Mhm.
So that way, if
Yeah.
there is, we can address it.
Yeah.
That go there. I avoid conflict at all times.
Smart.
Good
Thoughts
on
on
you.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Bookstagram? Because Bookstagram, I'm not on TikTok. I'm too
Mhm.
old. I don't get it. But Bookstagram, I find, can be a very heated, opinionated place. And so
Mhm.
for like constructive criticism is construction criticism. It's
Yeah.
purposeful. It's there for a reason. It's like it highlights genuine
Mhm.
mistakes, whatever. Great. I find Bookstagram just people bitching because they can. And
A lot of it is.
a lot of it is, and then they get mean to each other because they
It's
didn't
so mean in
write
there.
this book, death to you. And you're like, okay, none
Mhm.
of this is helpful.
Yeah.
You're completely missing the point.
And
And
that's yeah, well, and that's where like a lot of like the discourse has taken place, because it's people, coming into, or it's like this person was like, oh my God, I love this book. And then someone goes in and goes, that was the worst book ever. I can't
Yeah.
believe you like it. Why'd you like it? And it's like, okay, well, like you are so entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
You are. But like, don't come into my space and say that. You can see that I said that I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
If you didn't, that's great.
Yeah.
Scroll.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Own post.
I feel like it's
Mhm.
yeah.
Don't reply to me. Like,
It's
Yeah.
getting worse because the amount of reels I've seen where book reviewers are like, don't come for me. This is
Yeah.
just an opinion. You feel how you feel. I feel how I feel.
Mhm.
We're all feeling.
Yeah.
See,
This is what I
and
thought.
I think a lot of that, like to me, book talk is a lot more vicious than Bookstagram.
Oh, okay.
So book talk, I feel like that's the wild, wild west out there. Like in book talk, like that gets, because it's a lot of like, it's a lot of it's a lot more hot takes because you're trying to get those likes, you're trying to get those views. So like you're throwing out those hot takes to like catch attention, and it's not all like that, but obviously like some of them are. And I feel like Bookstagram, because and I Instagram's pushing reels a lot more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. But like before, it was more you were posting pictures, so it wasn't you weren't as drawn in. I don't think, because it's a lot easier to scroll past a picture than it
Yeah.
is a video, because you're hearing that and you're wanting to react.
Mhm.
So I think that book talk is a little bit more that's a little bit more Wild West. I feel like there's a little bit more negativity on it than Bookstagram, but I have seen some pretty vicious things, and I'm like, I don't understand.
No, I don't know. Like it's because I mean,
I mean, on anything, but
no, not really, because it's such a
like,
subjective thing. It's like, yes,
mhm,
okay, I love that you loved it. I read it too, and I had a completely different experience. And I
mhm.
still feel like it doesn't take away from the fact that you love that book.
No. Well,
So,
because nobody's experiences are the same. And
no,
so, what may have really appealed to me may have totally missed you. You may
yeah,
have been like, "Yeah, I read that. I didn't appreciate it. Like, it wasn't for me." But for me, it might have been the most moving thing that I've ever read my entire life. Um, and I think that a lot of people forget that
mhm,
reading is subjective. And especially whenever you, especially in romance novels, right? Like, it is a little bit more black and white. That's why, you have people who love different genres and love different tropes and all of these other things. It's because you may not like dark romance, and I love dark romance, but like
mhm.
it doesn't mean that those books are bad.
No,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's an interesting point, and I'm not trying to influence you on the whole pulling your stuff down by any means, but uh, I have a belief that once a piece of art is out there, whether it's
Mhm.
writing or an art piece, whatever it is, it's no longer the artists; it's whoever is enjoying it. That's who it now belongs to. Uh,
Mhm.
in the way of that's it's like Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm gonna tell you right now, like if I go back and I re-listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl and they change some stuff in the story, I'll be like, why the hell did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
curious if that is part of the reason why you may want to leave your stuff out there.
I
So,
think I think yes, in a lot of ways, because I do know that I still have some of like the people that were with me from the very beginning.
yeah.
And like they tell me, all the time, or not all the time, but like, frequently they'll, like post it or whatever, and they're like, I love this story. I love this story. It means so much to me. And I'm like, it's always like a torn, because I'm like, yeah, I know, but like it's not the greatest. And like every now and then, like someone will like pop in, and it'll be someone random who read it and loved it, and I'm like, that's great. I'm so glad you're loving it. And it's just like this awkward, like
I
I
hate
always I
that.
always want to I always want to be like, it get I can do so much better. And
Yes,
so I just get really awkward.
yeah,
But I'm like, I'm glad you're loving it. Like it's a
yes,
good story. It's just
yeah,
the writing's just not up to snuff with where I am today. Just so
yeah.
like just don't count it against me.
Mhm.
If you're like, "Oh, this writing has flaws." Yes, it does. It was my debut. I did not know what I was doing. I still don't, but I know a little bit more than I did back then.
It reminds me of so talking about Fan Expo. We were at one of the conventions, or we were one of the
We're
Fan
at a
Expos,
panel.
and it was a panel of artists. It was for comic book artists, and um, they were asking about advice, and he said the biggest piece of advice I'm going to give any artist out there is you are going to release stuff that you're not happy with, and
Mhm.
people are going to love it, and you'll have
Mhm.
no idea why,
Yep.
and that's okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Every time someone, like, will say something about that first trilogy, I'm like,
You judge them a little.
Really? Are you
I just a
sure?
little bit I'm like, "Have you read anything that I've written currently? Like, is this what
That's
is this?"
hilarious. You know what? I bet I bet a lot of actors run into that a lot.
Oh, yeah, I could
And
imagine.
good
I
example.
feel that for them.
Good example. Podcast I was listening to was talking about they just finally got to meet Bill Murray, and it's like the man's been making movies his entire life, and at some point you're like, really, Ghostbusters again? Like, have you not seen any of the work I've done since
Mhm.
Ghostbusters? But
Mhm.
that's what you're stuck on. Or what about Bob? Or
Yep.
something like maybe from his older stuff. So I could definitely see that. I was going to ask. So obviously you don't take criticism, or we already say how you take criticism. Sounds like you're a little sketch on flattery as well. You're
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
so I
I get
get
I
that.
get I get so weird when people compliment me. Like,
Right.
I shrink. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you've asked me about stuff and I just I'm like, "Nah, I don't know."
Right. I see. I've had to listen to a lot of other prop makers out there, and I've almost had to smack my own hand because someone will come up and be like, "Wow, that looks fantastic." And as a prop maker, my first instinct is go, "Yeah, well, it's okay. I messed up here, and this is a problem." It's like,
Mhm.
don't point that out. Don't do that to
Mhm.
yourself. And I
Yeah,
have to. I'm still working on that, trying to.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I had fun making it. Do you have any questions? And yeah, so yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, anytime, like, anyone asks us, like, John and I went to a wedding in November, and, everyone always asks, like, "How's the book stuff going? Oh my gosh, I read it, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah," and I just, like, visibly shrink, and John's like, "Oh, yeah, she had a line, she was this," and I'm like, "You are the greatest hype man, but I am
Good on
sweating."
him.
I was like, "I am sweating right now, like, I get so," and it's like it's worse when it's in person, if I am at an event because, like, if someone's like, "Oh my god, like, I read this book, I loved it." I just, like, I do. John's like, "You visibly shrink." Like, you're just like, and so I have to be very, like, aware of,
Mhm.
like, my body and my language and my face and, like, what I'm doing at all times when I'm, like, talking to people because I will just, I, like, physical reaction to, like, being complimented is just like, ugh. I was like, "Please don't."
I have to remind myself when I'm at the Ghostbusters booth, smile,
Yeah.
because otherwise, like, this is normal. And I'm like,
Mhm.
nope, people are walking by smiling. So anyway, yeah. I don't want to monopolize your entire night. There were a couple more questions. If you've got time, I would just
Yeah.
wanted to run through. So what other creative things do you do besides writing? Or is it like, no, writing is where I pour all of my energy in and the rest of it's just absorbing stuff that I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Like I said, I used to do photography and whatnot a lot, and I still like that medium. I just don't do
Mhm.
it a lot anymore. I'm huge in film. I will watch movies, mostly old movies. I don't watch many new movies. Um, I blame it on the ADHD. I like the familiarity. So I but yeah, I'm huge on music. I love listening to music. I think on my Spotify Wrapped last year said I listened to like 150 hours. Like, I listen to music like all the time.
Nice.
It is never quiet. Um so I always have it going. So Yeah, no, I like playing video games, board games, as we always do when we come visit. So
Yeah.
I like doing other things, but writing is primarily like where I pour everything into.
The Canadians have a term for putting on something like a movie or something in the background just to have it there to
Mhm.
soothe. What do y'all
Oh,
call it?
whale song.
Whale song.
I love that. Yeah, no,
So
that's literally
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
I can't stand the silence. It makes me
Yeah.
it's almost worse than compliments. Like I don't like it.
Yeah, it's from a Simpsons episode where it's a look back at Marge in college, and she's dating the college professor, and he starts having a meltdown, and she's like, "What can I do?" He's like, "I need whale song to calm down," so that the comfort goes up because we need to. It's the whale song. We need to
Mhm.
recenter.
I need that comfort.
I need the comfort. I need the whale song.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm having a meltdown. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your newest book coming up. So as we are recording this, we're recording this on a Wednesday, but it will come out next Monday, and that's when your new book drops, Between the
is.
Pines.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this one.
Oh man. So this one. Oh, okay. So I always vowed that I would never step into cowboy romance.
It looks like you did.
I grew up on a ranch. I was very much like, no, like, no. I dated cowboys. Like, absolutely not. There's nothing to romanticize there. We're not doing this. And one of my friends actually, like when I was having like a major burnout and I was ready, I was almost ready to like quit. I was like, I'm, done. I can't do this anymore, blah, 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 blah. And so two of my friends were like, just write a book for you. My first friend before she like was telling me to do this, she was like, I need you to read this book. And I was like, I don't want to read cowboy romance. I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, please don't make me. Like, I was like, I'd never read it. Like, I didn't want to, like, please don't make me do this. And she was like, no, just do it. Like, we love this male narrator. You're going to love it. It's going to have so much fun. And I did have fun. And I hated that I had fun. And so then I went down like this rabbit hole of like these prominent, like, small town cowboy romance authors. And all of a sudden I was like, I texted them. I was like, I think I'm going to write a cowboy romance. And here we are. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird for me.
Okay, so your first three books were is it romantasy? Is that what they refer to it?
Romantic,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. And then your second one's you got vampires in there, which is okay. Everything up to this point, from what I know of my sister-in-law, that all tracks. Yeah, the whole cowboy thing is a total out of left field. So
Yeah, no, it's weird. Yeah. I it's very weird. And in fact, I had my friend sent me a little gift package, which she is having the most fun with because I don't do pink, but there's obviously like pink on my cover. But she bought these in November when I was like, I think I'm gonna write a cowboy romance. This is who's my editor is. And so she literally went out and got me pillows.
wow.
She got me a blanket. She got me like earrings. I mean, she like loaded me up. And she was like, John's gonna yell at me because I got you so much pink stuff. And he's been like, there's so much pink. What is happening? And I'm like, I don't know.
That's amazing.
Like, I wish I could tell you. I've got no idea. But here we are. We're running with it.
Yeah, because normally, like when you show up, you are very much dressed traditional geek. Black shirt, black pants. It's everything's very dark.
Yep.
So that's this is hilarious.
It's weird. It's very weird. John found my thank you cards for like they're pink. Like got pink bubble mailers. Like my book has pink on it. Like when one of my friends, like I was having issues with the cover And I was like, I just can't get the color scheme right. I was like, I knew I wanted it to be green. I was like, but I'm having trouble. And so my friend who has built a entire brand on pink, like pink is her color, like it's in her logo. I mean, she has literally built her brand to a T and everything's pink. And she said, I need you to bear with me for a second. And I said, what are we doing? And she like sent me these pictures of like this pink and green cherry. And she's like, what if you did something like this? And I was like, it's pink. And she was like, I know. She's like, just bear with me. Just send it to the designer and see what she comes up with. And so that is how we ended up with the cover. And I was like,
Cover.
you got me to put pink on a cover. And now I look at my aesthetic, like when I was promoting, like hardcore promoting the duology, and it's like all reds and blacks and just like very like very heavy and you know, like paranormal and, you know, just darker aesthetic and everything. And then I look at, you know, my Instagram now and it's like all like pastels and pinks and just like all this like really girly stuff. And I'm like,
What have I done?
I don't know what's
What have I
happening.
become?
Yeah. John just keeps like walking around the house and like these pens showed up the other day. They've got like a bunch of cowboy sayings on them. And he's like, I just don't understand what's happening. And he's like, damn you, Holly, Lauren, and Heather. And I was like, yeah, blame them. It's not me. I didn't do this. It's like, I'm weak. There's peer pressure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I look forward to the next sequel or the next journey into the Canadian Rockies.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. There is a lot of cowboy romances that are all set in Canada.
I believe that.
Alberta. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Literally, like there's like one author in particular who is Canadian. Her name is pen name is Elsie Silver, and all of those books are set in Canada. And like there's this huge market of books. Like most of the prominent like cowboy romance like on the market today are all set in Canada. And I was like, that, you know what? I don't blame him.
Yeah, fair enough.
We're nice.
I would also like to be set in Canada. So
That's another topic for another.
yeah, that's a whole
is.
other thing.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. That being said, Amber, would you like to talk a little bit about where people can find your books and a little bit about where they can find you and all the information about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Amazon across the board. AmberPalmerAuthor.com. That has links, like universal links to the books. Amazon is my biggest source. With Between the Pines, there are some indie bookstores who will be carrying. So some of them you can buy them online. I don't have a full list. Because a lot of it is just them ordering it, and someone will tag me in it, and I'll be like, I didn't know that bookstore was carrying it, but that's great. So, but yeah, Amazon, Instagram, Amber Palmer Author across the board for Instagram, Threads, TikTok. I try to keep it as simple as possible, and universal so people can find me. I am most active on Instagram, because I find it a lot easier than all the others. Yeah. TikTok is pretty much I post and do my minimum engagement and then I get out of there. But book talk or bookstagram is where I'm most active. So
Fair enough. Well, that is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating wherever it is you watch or listen to the show. Like I said, you can find us at pretty much all the different podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You can watch the show on YouTube. I'm trying to do a little more stuff with the video, so it might be worth watching it over there. You can also subscribe to it as a audio podcast over there. Imagine that. And then you can always go to epicallygeeky.com where you can find links to all the shows we do, including the Epically Geeky Show, Creatively Geeky Show, Marginally Geeky Show, and Sustainably Geeky Show. And then we'll have links on the episodes where you can get to everything. Amber Palmer. So where can we find you online, Ray?
The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Ooh, Blue Sky. Okay,
Ooh,
now.
I know.
Ooh.
Chris?
Just on Instagram at Moody Midlife.
And as always, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimachine on Facebook and Instagram. For everyone on the site, have a good night.